Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, today we are going to have, good morning. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 6th September 2021. Okay, let us see which are the important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. These are the important articles. First of all, what we will do is let us take overview of all these articles, then we will discuss them one by one in detail. First of all, men's related developments on page number 6 and 7, editorial page and op-ed page. Simultaneously, you can have a look at your newspapers also. Reaching out to Taliban, moral questions that are raised here. Okay, so this particular article, it is talking about why countries needs to reach out to Taliban, or in future whatever the government that is going to be formed in Afghanistan led by Taliban. Okay, so this is very important from GS2 paper IR section as well as GS4 ethics paper also. Why? Because the article is discussing this particular issue from ethical aspects also. So, ethics in international relations, there is one particular topic in GS4 paper of your men's syllabus. Okay, so this particular article is analyzing this perspective, that reaching out to a state or a particular government that had a history of violence, human rights violation, and why there is need of these countries including India to reach out to such state so as to have some kind of state socialization. We will discuss all these aspects related to ethics also here. Okay, so this is important, GS2 paper, GS4 paper. Then on page number 7, there is article talking about judicial role in improving lawmaking process. We are expecting such question in GS2 paper. We know that there is separation of powers principle enshrined in our constitution, and that's why the three organs of state work independently with some checks and balances that are there inbuilt in our constitution. However, the recent processes where we have observed, especially during this monsoon session of the parliament, where discussion and deliberation on various bills was not done, and recently Chief Justice of India has also raised the concern regarding such process of lawmaking. Okay, so that is the context of this article, and we have to understand in which ways the judiciary, especially higher judiciary, can help in improvement of this lawmaking process or overall working of the parliament. Okay, so this is important from GS2 paper polity part. Then some of the other editorial, they are not that much relevant. Some topics are already discussed, so that's why we are not discussing that. Okay, now on let's say first page, only locals in Ladakh to get a resident certificate. So this is important from polity and governance. You need to have follow up on what government is doing in promoting good governance in Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh after reorganization of that Jammu Kashmir state. Okay, so we are expecting such kind of question, because to some extent we have overcome the problem of violence and instability in the Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh region, but now how the government is trying to gain the trust of the local people through such governance measures here. Then states told to identify fake vaccines. There had been some reports by WHO in some of the Southeastern Asian states and African states that such fake vaccines are being sold in the market. And that's why this prompted government to ask different states to monitor and identify whether such fake vaccines are there in our market also. Yes. Then National Teachers Awards, they were given yesterday. There was Teachers Day, National Teachers Day celebrated. Okay, so on this occasion, President gave away National Teachers Awards to different teachers. So what is this award, when it was constituted, and some of the important captions from the presidential address or speech that can be used in your essay paper also. Okay, yes. So let us go into details of all these articles. Yes, the name of the article on page number 6 is Reaching out to the undesirables. Now, why the word is used undesirables? Undesirable here it is talking about Taliban. But we need to reach out to such undesirables in certain situations, and this is the situation that we need to reach out to Taliban. This is how the article is discussing. Let us understand. First of all, the context, India's formal engagement with Taliban and its significance. Recently, there was open talk with the Taliban leaders from India's foreign leaders, or we can say that our external affairs ministry representatives, and the significance we can understand first from securing India's interests in Afghanistan, and second we can say that to influence the policies of Afghan government in future. So not only, let's say, external policies, foreign policies of Afghan, but also the internal politics of Afghanistan also, especially for welfare of its own people. Okay, so in this manner we can talk about India's outreach. Now it is open. Up till now, to some extent, we had not taken the open route channel to talk with Taliban. Here now we have open dialogue with Taliban. Now, after understanding this significance, the article is also talking about geopolitics and morality. The moral question here in this perspective is that the country like India, which promotes peace and non-violence in international relations or at the world stage, should it have such kind of open dialogue or reach out to such non-state actors which are involved in the violent acts in its past or violation of human rights? Okay, this is the moral question. This is not only to India but also the other democratic countries in the West also. Okay, so from this aspect we have to understand the geopolitics and morality. So in international relations, there are two concepts, realism and idealism. Okay, so moral realism and moral idealism, these two concepts we need to understand here. Moral realism says that we need to understand and appreciate, acknowledge the ground realities and accordingly, where the compromise of some moral ideals will be there. Okay, but moral idealism which talks about adherence to the lofty ideals like peace, non-violence, and we can say ethics in international relations. Okay, so from that aspect we should understand now the morality in international relations or ethics in international relations. So the article, the writer is saying that morality is often a product of power. So we are talking about from the international relations perspective. Okay, so product of power, that means the country which is having the military strength or economic strength, that dictates the moral ideals in the world. Okay, and this is how they becomes the universal behavior also. They become the universal behavior also. For example, when US became the superpower, it tried always to promote democratic kind of government or democracy throughout the world. Okay, so why the countries need to accept democracy when the alternative suitable to them is available? But to some extent this is dictated by the superpowers here on the basis of military and economic strengths. Okay, so in this manner we should understand the morality is often the product of power, and it is the moral logic used by powerful states that tend to win over the weaker ones and thereby becoming the standards of behavior. In this manner we should understand how ethics in international relations works out. While deciding to condemn by such countries, okay, so let's say superpowers or regional powers, when they decide to condemn a certain non-state actor or let's say even the governments, we routinely use to selective application of morality. How? For example, whenever we try to condemn for violent acts or terrorist acts, so we blame non-state actors. But suppose they are state sponsored acts of violence. Suppose they are state sponsored acts of violence, then to some extent the governments or the different states become hesitant here. Okay, so the differential standards are used in international relations or ethics in international while applying such kind of morality. Okay, so this is how we have to analyze geopolitics and morality, ethics in international relations. So we have to also understand why we need to reach out to the Taliban in specific case here. The possibility of potential state socialization is why we must engage with organizations we disagree with. Yes, surely we disagree with Taliban, but there is potential of state socialization in future. What is the meaning of state socialization? Remember this term, this can be asked in the mains examination. State socialization means that when a particular non-state actor gains the power and becomes the legitimate government in that country, then it interacts with other governments of different countries. And other governments pressurize this particular government. Suppose for example, Taliban-led government in Afghanistan in future. It will be pressurized by countries like India, US and other democratic countries in the world to uphold the rights of the people, to shun the violence in the country, to have the peace and democratic processes in the country. So this is how the state socialization will change their behavior. Though earlier they resorted to the, let's say, power, or we can say that the violent acts, violation of human rights, in future we can expect changes. So in this manner, the point of diplomacy we can understand is also to engage with the undesirables to try and change their positions. This is what one of the important objective of diplomacy is there. Right? In the past also there are many such examples. In the past also there are many such examples. Even in India we can take the examples of Northeast insurgency in Mizoram. This is successfully brought down in Tripura, and now there is considerable peace and development in those states. Okay, and this has been done through the discussion and deliberation dialogue with these non-state actors. There are many such Naxalites who are putting down the weapons and coming forward. They are surrendering and the government is in dialogue with them. They are asking them to, let's say, get rehabilitated and into the mainstreaming of these people into the society. If we are talking about the international examples, there are many such European countries, for example UK. So there were many North Ireland rebellion groups there. So UK government tried to have dialogue with them simultaneously when they were involved in the violent acts also. Okay, so in the past many such examples are there when the government had reached out to these undesirable groups for the desirable outcomes. Okay, so in this manner we should deal with such moral questions in this particular issue. Now this is new aspect. Up till now we were talking only with respect to international relations. Okay, any question?
Sir, as Taliban is going to incorporate the leaders of Haqqani network, which is responsible for many attacks in India. So in future, how we will deal with that government?
Yes, see, when they are declaring themselves as a government, then it becomes, let's say, responsibility of these leaders which are in power to ensure some standards of behavior. Otherwise, what will happen? There will be sanctions from the international community. Any state cannot remain in the isolation in today's globalized era. Okay, and therefore, what they need to adhere to some international standards. Otherwise, what will happen? They surely need some resources from the international community. They need to have some trade, international trade with other countries. And if suppose international community has or puts some sanctions, economic sanctions on this country or the Taliban government, then what will happen? It will suffer. state will not have resources and the people will die out of poverty and misery also. Okay, so it has to, let's say, follow some standards in its conduct.
So as per Tripura situation, the Naxalite has been voluntarily they surrender now, sir. They
Yes.
like to normal people,
Yes.
they leave to normal people. Because of they have no any resource support from any anti-terrorist group. But the Taliban having more than 2 countries, anti-India countries are going to be providing the sources as well as the intelligence technology to the Taliban. Then how we can able to tackle that?
See, the names you are talking about, Russia and China, or even per se Pakistan also, you are saying that, see, try to understand, these countries will not directly provide resources to Taliban. They are just at present giving support in terms of, let's say, on the international platforms. Try to understand this. No country is, let's say, safe here. Russia is not safe, Pakistan is not safe, China is not safe. If it is supporting as the Taliban it is at present, resorting to violence. We know that Xinjiang province borders with Afghanistan. We know that how violent acts are being conducted in Pakistan. Many such reports are coming. So Russia cannot, let's say, make its southern states, or we can say that those Central Asian republics, vulnerable for spillover effect. Okay, so ultimately these countries will not directly provide resources. Rather, they are giving just chance to Taliban whether it has changed its behavior, whether it will resort to some different kind of conduct and not the earlier one like 1996 to 2001, that the period where the Taliban ruled Afghanistan. Okay, so that's why we can expect at present that whenever the government is formed, how it is going to conduct itself, so that is going to decide the support by the international community.
Okay.
Okay, yes. Now, next article, judicial role in improving lawmaking. Yes, so what we have to understand here in lawmaking process, recently the context of this article is that Chief Justice of India recently highlighted the problems or weaknesses, gaps in lawmaking process, especially during the monsoon session where the bills were not discussed, not one single bill was discussed or deliberated more than 10 minutes. Okay, so this is cause of concern because we all know that when the bills or legislations are made in a hurry, then there are chances that the appropriate scrutiny is not made, the executive is not being held accountable by the representatives of the people in the parliament, and this is very important task of the parliament, that is discussion and deliberation. Second is holding the executive accountable through such discussions. We know that the parliament is having the wider representation and it helps to accommodate all those views on that particular bill. At the same time, when the bill is, let's say, referred to standing committees for further scrutiny, it adds the views of the experts, right? So in this manner, we should understand the importance of having the appropriate lawmaking process, and to some extent parliament is failing to do its work. Yes, so first of all, this is the context. Then we know that the volume of bills passed by the parliament is not correct measure of parliament efficiency. So the productivity of the parliament, to some extent in recent times, it is being decided on the basis of number of bills passed in a particular session, but it is not the measure to decide the efficiency of the parliament. There are some flaws in this measure. What are these flaws? It is not considering whether there was deliberations or discussion on those particular bills. This is not reflected in such kind of measure. Second thing, we should understand whether they were referred to standing committees for further detailed scrutiny and feedback from the experts. Okay, so this is not reflected. All these are actually, we can say, weaknesses here in this particular measure as Parliament's efficiency. We know that rushed lawmaking sacrifices core ideals of constitutional democracy. Which are the core ideals? First, we know that the wider representation. Or we can say the inclusiveness of the law. And second, we can say that fundamental rights of the people. Whenever such rushed lawmaking happens, then there is scope of violation of fundamental rights. Okay, and therefore that's why the article is talking about now role of judiciary. Role of judiciary. In what way judiciary can play its role? Now this is very important aspect. First, in the first way, we can say that the judiciary can enforce constitutional provisions or measures. That means whatever the law making processes, measures are mentioned in the constitution, if they are not followed in letter and spirit, then judiciary should ask the legislature to follow them. Okay, so any suppose, let's say, particular article, let's say article number 100, it talks about the voting in the parliament on those bills. Different types of voting is done. There are some, let's say, lacuna in that voting procedures, which may result into, we can say that whenever the majoritarian government, like at present is there in the Lok Sabha, that misuses that for we can say that having the majority to pass such legislations. Okay, so the judiciary can enforce those constitutional provisions for implementing this lawmaking process or having this lawmaking process in letter and spirit. Second thing we should understand here is that there is one particular, let's say, word used. Let me tell you that particular word. Yes, presumption of constitutionality, doctrine of presumption of constitutionality. Okay, doctrine of presumption of constitutionality. Let us understand the meaning of this doctrine. We know that Indian Constitution is based on the important principle of separation of powers with checks and balances. And here, this particular doctrine of presumption of constitutionality says that whatever the law making process has been done, this is done with the appropriate measures undertaken. Okay, so the wisdom of lawmakers cannot be questioned in the judiciary. Okay, or by the judiciary, we can say. This is how the presumption is there that the constitutionality is followed. Okay, and this is to some extent being responsible that up till now the higher judiciary has not intervened in the law making process. This will be called as, to some extent, judicial overreach. It will be called as judicial overreach because law making process is the function of legislature. Okay, so this principle or doctrine of presumption of constitutionality has been responsible for reluctance by judiciary to intervene in the legislative processes. However, we should also understand that if particular legislative procedures or processes are not involving discussion and deliberation, then this particular factor can be included here. Factor of deliberation for invalidation of a particular law. Suppose a particular law is passed without deliberation, then judiciary can resort to invalidation of law for saying that it may violate fundamental rights of the people. Okay, so in this manner the judiciary can intervene, but to some extent it may result into judicial overreach, and the conflict between, we can say, executive and judiciary may rise again, like that happened during the 1970s, Indira Gandhi era. The conflict between judiciary and executive. Executive was having the numbers in the legislature, right? Like at the present government, we can say that the majoritarian government, it to some extent affects such kind of processes. Okay, so what way forward we can understand here? Even Chief Justice of India has said that legislature should be reformed from within. So reforms should come forward from the legislature itself. But to some extent, majoritarian government will not resort to such kind of reforms. There will be some kind of reluctance to bring changes in the legislative processes when the majoritarian government is there. Why? Because the opposition is weak. Opposition is weak, and because of that we can say that there will not be drastic changes in the legislative processes. And the second way forward, a major, we can say that whenever Supreme Court finds suitable, it should intervene, especially whenever it feels that there is violation of fundamental rights by a particular law, or a particular law requires some kind of changes to make it more wider or more inclusive for the voices of the people. So such kind of way forward you can mention here. Any question?
Sir, when the judicial department is strong, the nation will be witness a very strong system in the ruling as well as the living standards in the country. Is there any possibility to make a strong legal system before passing of any bills in Parliament?
See, try to understand. It is not the only case that whenever judiciary is strong, then the country will be strong, okay, or the rights of the people are always upheld. Try to understand UK, one of the oldest, we can say, democracy, where the parliamentary sovereignty is stronger as compared to judicial independence. We know that, but it is exactly opposite to US, where judicial independence is supreme, or judicial supremacy is more as compared to parliamentary supremacy, right? So in both countries the rights of the people are upheld, they are supreme, right? Even in one country like US, there the written constitution is there, but in UK there is no written constitution also, but still the rights of the people are upheld, they are protected. Okay, so we have to understand that rather than focusing on let's say reforming of these institutions by one particular institution like judiciary, there should be initiation of these reforms within the institutions. In the past also Supreme Court had tried to reform all other institutions, and to some extent it has been successful. Like for example, Election Commission. Like, so there are reforms in the electoral processes. There are reforms by the judiciary. If you are talking about the police reforms, so there are reforms by the judiciary in the police institution also, right? But to some extent it has been successful, but not successfully implemented yet in letter and spirit, right? So we know that the Prakash Singh judgment and the reforms not yet implemented by the states in letter and spirit, right? So this should be from within, then they will be long term. Okay. Yes.
Sir, but by the loopholes of the law system, everyone is going to be passing the based on the loopholes of the law system only, sir. Whether the correct bill or what is the basic structure, what is the what is the future impact on the living of the people in this country. They are not able to have not vision on that before passing that thing. They are not able to giving the chance to participation of a research department as well as the experts on particular department.
Yes, when the majority in government is there, we have such kind of situation. Even in the past, now also we are facing similar situation. But now the judiciary is comparatively more stronger as compared to 50 years back during the Indira Gandhi era. And we will understand here that Supreme Court or the higher judiciary will always come forward to protect the rights of the people. Okay, so any such, for example, Aadhaar bill. Okay, so when it was passed as a money bill, Supreme Court has intervened, right? So yes, the present government is resorting to money bill route to pass many such legislations, and to some extent it is not appropriate also. But yes, Supreme Court, whenever it has found that the rights of the people are violated, it has intervened, and in future we can expect that also. Okay. Yes, so try to have a look at this question also. Any intervention by the judiciary in law making process affects the principle of separation of powers enshrined in the constitution. Critically analyze with reference to rushed law making process in the parliament and calls for intervention by judiciary. Okay, so this is the context how judiciary can intervene. But it should have restraint in such intervention. You should always talk about this. Okay, it should not intervene in legislative processes. Try to understand this. It should nudge the legislature. What it can do is ask the legislature to change the processes by itself. Right? Okay. Now, specifically prelims related, only locals in Ladakh get resident certificate. Okay, now this is important. Resident certificate in Jammu and Kashmir. Earlier, when the Jammu and Kashmir administrator had this particular order, there was some huge uproar at that time. But in Jammu and Kashmir, the residents, the new domicile laws allowed outsiders also to apply for jobs, land and other facilities. However, in Ladakh now, the original people living in there, they only will have all these facilities. Okay, so Ladakh administration had decided to issue resident certificate only to permanent resident certificate holders, and all tahsildars will be authorized as competent authority to issue the resident certificate. At the same time, it has increased, let's say, the age limit for those into the non-gazetted posts. The administration also enhanced the upper age limit for entry into government services against all posts. Okay, and the upper age limit has been enhanced for reserve category from 43 years at present to 45 years, for general category 40 to 42 years, and physically challenged from present 42 to 44 years now. Okay, so some trivial information, but you just need to be aware about first aspect. In Jammu and Kashmir, outsiders allowed, but in Ladakh, outsiders are not allowed to own the property. Okay? Yes. States told to identify fake vaccines. Following the World Health Organization's warning that it has identified the fake versions of vaccines in some of the Southeast Asian countries and African countries, now the government has so moto taken the let's say acknowledgement of this particular warning and asked the states to identify counterfeit or falsified Covishield vaccines in India. Some of the, let's say, anti-counterfeit features in the Covaxin label include an invisible helix DNA-like structure that is only seen under UV light, ultraviolet light. Micro text hidden in the label claims dots, which is written as Covaxin. The green foil effect in the X of the Covaxin and the holographic effect on the Covaxin. These are the counter or anti-counterfeit features on the label of that vaccine bottle. Okay. So yes, such kind of question will not be asked by UPSC, but some state PCS, they ask such kind of trivial information. Okay. So that's why we had covered as a follow-up to COVID-19 this one. Now, a good teacher is a nation builder. Experts, let's say not experts, we can say that our president was awarding National Teachers Award here on the Teachers Day. We celebrate National Teachers Day on 5th September, the birth anniversary of Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, the former president and eminent educationist. Okay, so Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, his birth anniversary. Now, in that particular speech, he was awarding National Teachers Award, which was instituted in 1958, and every year on 5th September these awards are given, 1958. Now, these captions can be used in your essay paper or even in ethics paper, because in ethics we have one particular subtopic in our syllabus, the role played by educational institutions in promoting human values or inculcation of values, right? So, parents and schools and educational institutions. So, here the teachers are important component, we can say that, of the socialization of the children. So, look at these statements. The teacher should pay special attention to the fact that each student has different abilities, talents, psychology, social background and the environment. Therefore, the emphasis should be laid on the all-round development of each child according to their special needs, interests and abilities. Very good statement you can use in your answer. Then, the primary responsibility of combining inherent talents of the students lies with teachers, right? And a good teacher is personality builder, a society builder and nation builder. There can be direct statement based question in UPSC GS4 paper like this. A good teacher is a personality builder, a society builder and a nation builder. How teacher builds society? By incorporating or inculcating good values among the children who are going to become the responsible citizens of tomorrow. This is how the good society is built, and a good teacher is the teacher who identifies the potential of the children and help him to realize that, and ultimately that contributes to the nation in terms of, we can say, productivity of that child when it is contributing to economy. So, nation building process not only in economy but as an important human resource also for the nation, right? So, in this manner we should talk about whenever the question is asked. Fine, any question? These were important articles.
Sir, can I ask a question about note making?
Yes.
Sir, when we talk about those public administration, especially, sir, so sir has dictated the class note very exhaustively. So should we make note out of that class note or not, sir?
Yes, what you can do is either you can stick notes from the current affairs whenever you find a very good data related to that particular syllabus topics or the issue that is discussed by Ansari sir in the classroom. Okay, so that data will supplement to your argument, updated data or facts you can add there. Suppose you have some kind of new issue related to that particular topic, syllabus topic, then you can make small half page or 1 page note and you can add in those notes only. You can staple that there. Okay, so in this manner you can do the value addition from the current affairs.
Sir, I'm not current affairs. I know you have guided me. So I'm just talking about making note out of the class notes which have dictated by sir.
Making notes out of class notes.
Yes, sir.
No, it is not advised. Actually, try to understand that whatever the class notes that are dictated by the sir in the classroom, they are ultimate notes. You need to revise them thoroughly.
Yes, sir. So I was trying to make note out of that, but I'm not.
It is very difficult. Everything is important in
Yes,
that.
sir.
It is very difficult.
Yes, sir. Every line, I think every line is important.
Yes, yes. Your handwritten notes, 2 to 3 booklets will be prepared after completion of that course. They are ultimate revising material for you before examination.
Yes, sir. I have already completed the course, sir.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes, yes. Revise again and again that material.
I need to only supplement the current note. Paper.
Yes, yes. On that too only paper 2. Right?
So,
Indian polity part. Yes.
yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Any other question?
Thank you so much.
Okay then. So yes, many times students feel that not more articles are being covered in the Hindu analysis, and many times we come across such comments. But try to understand that the Hindu analysis that we are doing here is not only about quantity. We have to qualitatively discuss this issue and take as much as possible inputs from those articles. Otherwise, what happens in terms of covering more number of articles which are going to repeat the same issue? I am again and again talking about this. Okay, so try to have follow up on these lectures on continuation basis. You will see that almost more than 90% we are covering all issues here. Okay, fine then. Let us stop.
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, one thing, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, when we see some sites also they are revising the editorial from other newspaper. So should we rely on the ED topics and not
Yes.
going behind all this other news channel?
Yes, yes, yes. You need to rely on ED lectures. Okay, where the more in-depth analysis is done on these issues only that we are discussing. In addition to these, if we are missing on certain issues which are mentioned in the other newspapers or magazines also, they are covered in the ED topics.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you need not to give extra time to other lectures online. Okay, fine. So let us
Yes,
stop. Yesterday's newspaper analysis you will receive the recorded video. Fine, thank you.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.